Andrew didn't understand what he was looking for, but he was sure that he would find something that would put everything in its place. His stepdaughter's behavior had alarmed him lately. Marie had become too secretive, always locking the door of her room, talking to someone on the phone, often going somewhere in the evening. Something was wrong, and Andrew had to find out what was going on behind his back. That night, Marie left home again. She said she was going to hang out with her friends, but Andrew didn't believe her. She was dressed very strangely, too brightly. She had never dressed like that before. The girl was hiding something, and her stepfather always considered hiding as lying. Andrew was raising Marie alone. He married her mother when Marie was only 7 years old. Andrew fell in love then and was completely immersed in the depths of passion. He was madly in love with Jane. She was gorgeous, smart, and seemed inaccessible. She drove him crazy, and he couldn't get her out of his mind. "I can't live without you." The man confessed his love to Jane, but she only grinned, looking at young Andrew, and shrugged her shoulders. "What love are you talking about? I don't believe in love for a long time now, especially when those words are spoken by men. Not all men are the same," Andrew said bitterly. He showered Jane with flowers, wrote her poems, and acted like the most romantic man on the planet. After a few months of pursuing, Jane indulgently allowed Andrew to court her, and then she let him into her life. Andrew knew almost nothing about his beloved's past. Yes, she had a 7-year-old daughter. Jane adored her and raised her alone, without a father. Who was Marie's father? Where this man had gone? What lurked in the past of his beloved? Andrew didn't know, and probably didn't want to know. Not because he thought the past wasn't important, but because he was afraid of her past. What if the man Jane truly loved was still there? What if the feelings the woman had for her first husband were the only true love of her life? Andrew would simply not survive that. The man didn't dare to propose to Jane for a long time. He was completely fine with the fact that his beloved had a daughter. Besides, the girl was quite friendly and showed no aggression towards her mother's new boyfriend. "Marie, do you think your mother will marry me?" Andrew once asked the girl nervously. Marie opened her mouth in surprise. "Andrew, do you really want to marry my mom?" the girl asked. "Of course I do. That's why I'm asking. What do you think? Will she say yes? I don't know. Maybe she'll agree, maybe not. Maybe she still can't forget Daddy." Those words, uttered by a child, stabbed Andrew in the heart. He was right to suspect that Jane still loved her first husband, Marie's father. Even the child realized that. Did she love him that much? Andrew uttered the words, sticking in his throat. Yes, she loved him. Marie nodded. Otherwise, she wouldn't have married him. After that short conversation with the 7-year-old girl, Andrew really thought about it. Now he wasn't sure if he should propose to a woman who might still be in love with another man. Besides, she was suspiciously often going somewhere, saying she was on a business trip. Once or twice a month, Jane would go to another city for work. But Andrew suspected that these trips had nothing to do with her job. Yes, Jane worked for a big cosmetics company that regularly sent its employees to various professional development trainings and courses. But why would an ordinary sales manager go to such trainings so often? Anyway, Andrew stayed at home with Marie, but he was very worried. Eventually, he couldn't stand it any longer and decided to talk to Jane. He asked her why she was so attracted to that city and whether she was traveling there to see her ex-lover. After hearing Andrew's words, Jane looked at him for a long time with an incomprehensible look, and then laughed just as long. "Andrew, I devnoli tvoje golov poi avalistiki strani misli." "Andrew, when did such strange parts occur in your head?" He frowned. "What else am I supposed to think? You're so cold with me. You go on business trips all the time, and you hardly ever call or text from there. What else am I supposed to think? For example, that I'm busy at work. What does that have to do with my ex-husband? He and I parted as enemies. He doesn't exist for me anymore." "Those are just words," Andrew muttered. "It hurts me to hear that," Jane said sternly. "Don't you trust me? Then why do we even live together? If you don't trust me, then why are you tolerating it all? Because I love you. I love you too. So I won't take offense," Jane concluded. "And just to let you know, my ex-husband lives in another country. So even if I go on business trips every day, I'm sure I won't meet him there. Andrew calmed down and then finally dared to propose to Jane. She said yes, and they got married. It seemed that everything was perfect. Andrew loved Jane, she loved him, and her daughter Marie was growing up in the family. Andrew adopted the girl, gave her his last name, and now she was officially considered Andrew's daughter, but she still called him Andrew out of habit. The spouses have long been planning to have a baby, but nothing worked out. Jane underwent one medical treatment after another. Andrew was also examined, but both were healthy, so the doctors didn't know what to say. In your case, I have no idea why you can't conceive a baby for so many years. Both of you are absolutely healthy. There are no problems on the female or male side, and you can safely have a baby. So, most likely, it's a psychosomatic problem. Maybe you need to let go of the problem, and everything will happen on its own. Honestly, I don't see it as a problem. Andrew said, I want to have a baby, but I'm fine with any outcome. And Jane isn't going crazy with grief too. She's busy with work. She's been promoted recently and now her job is taking up most of her time, so she's not focused on conceiving. Andrew was speaking for his wife, but he was constantly looking into his beloved's face and trying to sense her feelings. It seemed to him that the woman was constantly thinking about something else. Then he saw the anxiety on her face, but could not understand what it was related to, whether it was problems at work or the inability to get pregnant. Anyway, Andrew didn't like the way his wife behaved. He saw some strange things in Jane's behavior, and they seemed suspicious to him. Or maybe he was too mistrustful, continuing to be jealous and suspecting that she was hiding something from him. When a few years had passed since they had begun their unsuccessful attempts to conceive a baby in a natural way, Jane started talking about in vitro fertilization. I don't see any other options, and the doctors don't see any options either. Let's give it a try. I'm almost 40, and every year the chances of pregnancy are decreasing, and I can't leave you without children. It's too selfish. Andrew agreed, hoping that the birth of a baby would bond him and his wife. He wanted to have a biological baby with Jane so badly. The man was sure that their family life would definitely get better. However, when Jane was undergoing a thorough examination, the doctors diagnosed a tumor. Any pregnancy was out of the question. The woman was immediately admitted to the hospital and underwent surgery, followed by a long course of chemotherapy and then rehabilitation. Unfortunately, the process of fighting the tumor is too aggressive in terms of fertility. Jane's attending physician informed her with bitterness in his voice. After the treatment, having a baby is out of the question for you. Save my wife, doctor, Andrew pleaded. Everything else doesn't matter anymore. It took several years to fight the cancer. There were periods of remission and then relapses again. Tired of fighting the disease, devastated and already desperate, Jane lost all hope for the best and stopped resisting the disease. Marie's 16th birthday was the last birthday when Jane was there for her daughter. 2 months later, Jane was gone, and it was a shock to both Marie and Andrew. After his wife's death, Andrew suffered greatly. He was so afraid of being alone that he began to follow his stepdaughter's every move more closely, literally following her everywhere. Andrew, don't go crazy, please. Marie looked at her stepfather as if he were insane. I'm not going anywhere, I'm with you. I will not survive another loss, Andrew repeated. Your mother was the meaning of my life, and now you are the meaning of my life. You shouldn't make another person the meaning of your life. It's wrong. Try to meet someone, have a relationship. Maybe you can get married again, have a family, children. But Andrew thought it was unrealistic. For summer break, Marie asked her stepfather to allow her to go on a trip to another city with her best friend and her parents. Andrew worked a lot and he could not go with his stepdaughter. Marie managed to persuade him to let her go on a trip with her best friend. She almost begged Andrew on her knees to let her go to another city for 2 weeks. During those 2 weeks, Andrew called Marie several times a day, demanding a strict report on what she was doing, how and with whom she was spending time, what time she got up, and what time she went to bed. He was constantly nervous, thinking back to Jane's trips, and couldn't calm down. In the 6 months since his wife's death, Andrew had lost a lot of weight, looked much older than he was, and also became very nervous. It's impossible to live with you, Marie complained. You won't let me take a single step on my own. Stop controlling me. You're only making it worse. I'm worried about you. I'm afraid something might happen to you. Don't attract bad things with your farts. Andrew, let me live my life in peace. Andrew calmed down for a while, but when Marie told him about another trip with her friend, he got worried again. I'll go with you. Don't. Marie immediately became angry. We're big girls now. We can go on our own. I'm 17. I'm not a little girl. No, I won't be able to sleep or eat while you are away. Andrew. Marie raised her voice. I'm sick of it. Either you let me go on a trip with my friend, or I'm moving out. Andrew stared at his stepdaughter in fright. Moving out? Where? To a hostel. When I get to the university, I'm moving into the dormitory. Got it? Andrew fell silent. He couldn't let that happen. He fell silent, battling internally with his own fears. For 2 more weeks, he had agonized, suffered, worried, and since Marie's return, he sensed some changes in her. From then on, he began to notice that the girl behaved in a strange way. She went out at night to meet with friends. She had some new clothes and gadgets, as if someone gave her gifts, moreover, very expensive gifts. Andrew suspected the worst, but he didn't want to think about it. One day, when Marie had gone out with her friends as usual, he dared to go into her room. He began by searching the closet, hardly understanding what he was looking for. He searched for about 20 minutes, and then he found it. On the top shelf of the closet in some unremarkable makeup bag, there was a sock, and in the sock, he found money. A lot of money, several thousand. Holding the money in his trembling hand, Andrew wanted to scream with desperation. Did something he feared so much happen? Would he lose her, just like he had lost Jane? Everything inside the man clenched into a lump that made it impossible for him to breathe. He had barely waited for Marie. She came home as usual, still unaware of what was going on, and went into the kitchen to get a glass of water. Then, when she saw Andrew enter the kitchen silently, she flinched, nearly dropping the glass of water from her hand. Oh my goodness, Andrew. You scared me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. But you scared me more. Me? Marie looked at her stepfather in puzzlement. How? I didn't seem to be back too late. I found something in your room. Andrew held out a sock to Marie, and the girl's face turned pale when she saw it. You searched my room. Why? It's humiliating. Her voice turned to a shout. Marie took greedy gulps of water from her glass and then poured some more. I'm worried about you. Where did you get the money? It's my money, and I earned that money the honest and legal way. I'm not a prostitute, if that's what you thought. I didn't think so. It wasn't true, but Andrew couldn't say otherwise. There's a lot of money here, several $1,000s. Where did you get it, and what are they for? The girl was silent. I'll find out anyway. Marie, you know that all secrets are revealed sooner or later, don't you? It's not my secret, she finally answered. Not yours. Then whose is it? Mom's. Everything turned upside down inside Andrew. Of course, he'd suspected for years that Jane had another man. That's why she went on business trips so often. There was someone who gave her money. Now Marie was getting that money. Andrew felt bad even though his wife had been gone for almost 2 years. She should have told him the truth before she died, so her conscience would be clear. What kind of a secret is this? A man? Marie shook her head. A man? What are you talking about? Mom has been faithful to you. Then what? Or who? Marie was silent for a moment, then answered softly. A sister. I have a sister. Andrew thought he'd misheard. What sister? How? Jane had never hidden from him the fact that she had a child. 1 or 2. Did it matter? He loved her and would have married her even if she had 10 children. But I still don't understand where you got that kind of money. Marie, Mom is no longer alive, but you and I are. Let's reveal all the secrets that are tormenting both of us. When I was 2 years old, Mom gave birth to another daughter. She was born prematurely at 29 weeks and became disabled. Dad left us, or rather, left us for a woman he'd been cheating on Mom with for a long time. Now he had an excuse to leave. Andrew looked at Marie, her voice shaking as she told the truth. Andrew had never imagined that his wife had a secret Jane was keeping from him. He needed to find out the reason she was hiding it. So, what happened next? Mom needed to support us, me and my sister, but there was no money at all. And then my grandmother, my father's mother, offered to help my mom. She realized that her son was to blame for what happened, so she decided it would be better if the girl lived with her. Grandmother Irma was a doctor. She had connections in medicine. Thanks to her, my sister was regularly examined and treated. But the treatment wasn't for free, so we still constantly needed money. Where did your mother get the money from? Andrew asked. My father was sending the money. He moved to another country and still lives abroad, but grandmother doesn't want to know anything about him and doesn't want to accept any help from him either. Mom used to receive money transfers and then bring them to Grandma Irma to pay for Miranda's treatment and rehabilitation. Mom told her that she had a rich husband, that is, you, and that she could afford her daughter's treatment now. Grandma believed it, and she still does. Andrew was depressingly silent. I understand that you feel offended, but Mom simply didn't want to burden you with her problems. Miranda doesn't walk, she's disabled, but she paints beautiful pictures and even manages to sell them on the internet. Mom was so proud of her. So, she used to travel to another city to see her child. Andrew finally asked. Yes, and I used to go to see her too. I used to bring them money and see Miranda. She's so incredible. She is so kind, gentle, so naive. Andrew, you know, I still don't understand why Mom decided to hide her from you. You would have understood. You would have helped. Of course, you don't have as much money as our father who suddenly felt guilty and started helping his daughter to pay for her treatment. But you would definitely accept my sister and become a father to her. I feel like Miranda needs a daddy so much. Andrew suddenly felt weak, his legs shaking. He had suspected his wife of cheating for so many years, suspected that she loved her first husband, but everything turned out to be so simple. There was just another Jane's child living somewhere who needed help and support. Weakness was replaced by an urge to act. Can I see Miranda? Andrew asked. Yes, I think so. I was just about to ask you to let me go there for spring break. Now I won't have to lie, and you can come with me. And Grandma wanted to meet you for a long time. But don't tell her the truth about the money. Andrew nodded. That night, for the first time in many months or even years, he slept well. Jane came to him in his dream. She was smiling and so beautiful in her favorite green dress with her hair loose. This was Jane that remained in his memory. This was Jane that he had fallen in love with. And this was Jane he would love for the rest of his days. Thank you, she said softly and sent him an air kiss. He woke up in the morning and felt his pillow was wet with tears. They were not tears of sadness or despair, but tears of infinite tenderness and happiness. Tears of kind memory of a beloved person who was no longer there, but who had left behind so many wonderful memories.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. "Probably Sam." Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.